It's time. Let it be known that I and every man in this world have a duty, as all of us do, to stand in truth, to stand in honor, to stand with courage, but most importantly, to stand with love in your heart. Be a light unto this world. I claim that every man and woman is born free. We are not slaves, subjects, or legal persons. Every man and woman is equal under the law that comes from our Creator, which is recognized as supreme. Do no wrong or harm, trespass. That is the law of this land. Only by way of consent or contract binds a man or a woman. Remember these core foundational truths. Fact: all governments are created to protect the property of man. Period. Governments are there to serve we, the people. Our trust has been misplaced. We have placed our trust for far too long in a system in which we believe is based on law. It is not, for it is based on our ignorance and not being shown these foundational truths, and the first is known as the unlawful conversion. Here we see a statement of live birth, a record. This is actually a copy of the record when I was born in hospital. It's actually two documents in one, but let's focus on the foundational facts. What you see inside this border here is the record, the form which my mother and father filled out with the honorable hospital staff. At that time, they provided my name, which is my property. It was given to me. It is a gift, and is recorded down on this ledger. Now, what happens after this, my mother and father were not told, nor did they consent to any other documentation being created that would somehow enslave or compromise the very rights of their child that they just brought into this world. And this is what has been hidden from man for a very long time. They did this to you, to your friends, to your family, to your mother and your father, and this act continues to this day in every hospital around this world. Once these forms are complete, the Registrar General then receives these. And what they do is they send shortly after, a month, maybe 2 months later, to your home, your parents receive in the mail a birth certificate. But what is the birth certificate? This would be a good time to press pause. Go and get your birth certificate and any other identification that's been given to you by the government, or your bank, or credit card, etc. Hopefully you're able to acquire the documentation, so let us continue. Up until this point, it has been very, very difficult for people to explain what is going on, because if you're hearing this for the first time, people look at this and think this is crazy. And that is why we need to start at the very beginning with the documentation. The documentation is only one aspect of what is going on here. The simplest way to understand it for my fellow man is did you create this birth certificate? No, it's not yours. Remember that. Secondly, it has nothing to do with you. For example, if Tim Hortons or McDonald's or say Burger King, they acquired your information when you were born, and then they internally went and created ID with your name on it, plopped it in the mail and sent it to you, what would you do? You'd probably laugh, wouldn't you? That's right, because you know that document has nothing to do with you. Nothing. It's trespass. This is evidence of identity theft when we are first born. It's time people worldwide wake up and act. So Ontario, they're bringing out a brand new round of birth certificates. Here you see the man's first and middle name, Jeffrey William. The last name I've covered over, but notice the comma that's between the first and last name. We don't write our names like that, and there's a reason why. What is all this stuff that's been blacked out at the very bottom? Well, this is the ultimate corruption that we're going to discuss shortly. But first I want you to look at all your identification you have. You're going to see your names in all capital letters, You're also going to notice that your name is in a different configuration on each piece of ID. There's a .J, then there's a space J, then it might be Christopher James. Why is it capitalized? And why are they in different configuration? When something is capitalized, it's to take advantage of, to use to one's own advantage. In Black's Law Dictionary, capitis diminutio means the diminishing of a status through the use of capitalizations in Roman law. This is the loss or curtailment of a man's status. That's what happens when it's capitalized. And that's what's required in order to create a legal person. Here you see your John William Doe in the center. That's your given family name, trade name when you're born. And the service corporations go and create all these other identities unbeknownst to you, as shown on the ID. But let's return back to the birth certificate. My original birth certificate was laminated. When I flipped it over, on the back, it was blank. So I reapplied several years later for another birth certificate. And lo and behold, when you flip it over, you see that there's a red number there. That's a CUSIP number. So you might ask, what's a CUSIP number, Chris? Well, you're not going to like the answer. CUSIP stands for Committee on Uniform Securities Identification Procedures. A CUSIP number identifies most financial instruments, including stocks of all, you ready, registered U.S. and Canadian companies. What's that doing on my supposed birth certificate? And it's owned by the American Bankers Association, this system.
I believe you're in West Maryland. Karen, is that you, West Maryland?
That's right. It just said you are unmuted, so I think I'm in, right? Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, you got you.
Yeah. What happened was in 1933, this country was declared in bankruptcy, and that's when you got all these states being incorporated, and that's when you got babies when they were given Social Security numbers and their birth certificates. You see the names are put in capital letters. That's when we lost our courts. Our courts became maritime courts, and what the Federal Reserve banksters were doing was they were making an estimate of how much tax payments over their lifetime those babies were going to be paying, and they estimated for each person it was going to be like $600,000 or $700,000, and they issued bonds. And if you look at your birth certificate and you turn it over, you'll see that there's a number on there. There's a CUSIP number. That's, they would be issuing bonds for your babies, for the future earnings. And when you go into a court, it's no longer a regular court, and you're not given your rights. You're treated as if you were a vessel, as if you were a ship under maritime law. I couldn't believe it when I heard about this. I thought, that's impossible. I read it about 3 or 4 times, and from different people, and finally I realized, this is what's what. And when you pay your tax dollars, you're mailing your checks to a separate place. That's to the Federal Reserve System, and they're taking your money and they're sending it right off to London. And in the UK, they're keeping 40%, and then they're taking 60%, and they're sending that off to the Vatican's bankers.
Karen Hudes, World Bank lawyer of over 20 years. So you have a decision, you have a choice, and we need to wake up and recognize this truth of this diagram before you. This is the hierarchy of creation. You can either act like ye are all gods, or you can act like the creation of your servants, the legal person, the fiction, and live your life under their rule. It's up to you.